Alright, so welcome back to Comic Book History, episode 100. Yep. Excuse me, I've done 100 of these videos now. Like, damn. It is quite something. The fact, basically, when I started this, I mean, the whole point of this series is just to spout out my comic knowledge. And yes, I do spout that during my comic history, comic corner stuff. But this is basically a more generalized version of it, per se. A little more, you can think of the comic corner as more of an just expanding upon what I say here. Like in the case, with the exception of the last episode, which I talked about Supergirl, this one more highlights Marvel Comics. This time from the years of 2011 to 2013. Very divisive years when it comes to Marvel Comics. Those who came to Marvel Comics after this period of time, like, why are these years so divisive? 2011 basically was, well, by the way, also in 2008 we had the launch of the MCU. So we had the release of Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2. 2009 we had the purchase of, I forgot to mention this before, last in 2 episodes ago. 2009, big thing with that year is that Disney bought Marvel Comics. And then 2010 we had the release of Iron Man 2. And I believe it was, I think it was Iron Man 2 and I think Thor. 2011 had the release of Captain America, and 2012 had the release of the Avengers. And because of the fact that for Captain America First Adventure released in 2011, his ongoing series was restarted number 1 after issue 619. Still the same writer, Ed Brubaker. The Marvel did something they never did since then. Never did. I do not understand why they never brought back this method. So they continued the numbering, the Captain America volume numbering, as I refer to as Captain America and, because it's characters he came up with a certain period of time. The book lasted for another year before the book got canceled. Yeah, it lasted for 21 issues. And only 2 writers. First being Ed Brubaker, who did the first 9 issues of this book. First it was Captain America and Bucky from issue 620 to 628, and then for 629 to 632 was Captain America and Hawkeye. At this point, Colin Bunn had taken over the title. From 633 to 635 was Captain America and Iron Man. Of course, 2011 also started the ridiculous point 1 thing, where every single title of Marvel Comics basically had this thing. There was Iron Man 500.1. There was, of course, they had one for Captain America, Thor. Amazing Spider-Man surprisingly had 3 of these damn things. Venom did a weird one where it's 13. Because 2011 was also started the awesome Venom title by Rick Remender. The later taken on by Colin Bunn had these 13.1, 13.4. Yeah, it was the year of the fractions, where every single title of Marvel Comics had this, and with the exception of Amazing Spider-Man, mostly everybody basically stopped doing this after the one they did. Yeah, after that one. Okay, unlike in 2009, we had 4 big titles hitting big issue numbers. You had Amazing Spider-Man hit issue 600, along with Captain America, The Incredible Hulk, and I think Thor. Thor hit 600 as well that year too. I believe his was released prior to that. So in 2011, there were 2 major big events in 2011. Those events being Fear itself and the death of Spider-Man. Well, death of the Ultimate Universe Spider-Man, that ways. Which in the aftermath basically gave us, of all characters, Miles Morales. Now, I have heard there was sort of a legal... I haven't hearing that in the last few years, there was sort of a legal reason why they had to kill off Peter. Because Steve Ditko's family's, his estate basically has been suing their rights over the character of Spider-Man Doctor Strange for some time. And in order to sue them over, they got rid of the Ultimate Spider-Man, though he came back just a few years later in a very weird fashion. Yeah, and also we had the New Ultimates fight the Ultimate Avengers, which were a Black Ops team. So, also, I mentioned in 2022 we had the launch of the Secret Avengers title. I don't know if I remember mention that. So, it was initially done for the first 12 issues by Ed Brubaker. And then he left, and then I think it was Nick Spencer did it for a few issues, and then Warren Ellis had a very brief run, which when the book started, this is the line for the book when it first started. It was Steve Rogers, Sharon Carter, War Machine, Ant-Man, who actually later died with the last run of the book, Moon Knight. I think it was also like Black Widow. Yeah, it was like they had this lineup, and then after issue 21, which is when Warren Ellis left the book, Moon Knight, War Machine, and Steve Rogers and Sharon Carter all left the roster. Do not know the explanation for, like, in story there was no reason for this at all. They just stopped appearing in the title, and in the case what happened to these characters, well, War Machine got tired of what was going on in Matt Fraction's Iron Man. Moon Knight, I believe in 2011, got the start of another brief ongoing series, this time being by Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev, which lasted for 12 issues and had him go to LA for basically most of the book. And also, none of the supporting cast, like no Frenchie, no Marlene, none of his villains. It's just him battling Count Nefardia. And also, him and Echo developing a relationship, which was really, really weird. Like, why in the world would they basically develop a relationship between these two, who had no connection whatsoever? And by the end of the book, Echo died. Yeah, she died. And then she randomly came back in Charles Show's Daredevil a few years later, and it ended with no explanation how the heck she came back. She just is alive somehow, despite the fact she was killed by Count Nefardia. For reasons. Yeah, it was also the book where you have basically Mark Spector's hallucinations was getting way out of control. At one point, he was talking to the Avengers even though nobody was there. Yeah, it was an odd type book. And also, if you're trying to find the omnibus of this book, good luck finding it, because basically it's like nearly impossible, because a lot of the older Moon Knight trade paperbacks are basically out of print. That's basically what comes to that. 2011, the other event that happened that year was Fear itself. This event has been... I remember when it was first announced, this particular event, that they decided to use the event... The name itself comes from Fear itself, comes from a line in FDR's speech that he gave on December 8th, 1941, when he basically asked the United States Congress to declare war on Japan, basically the Axis powers mostly, saying we have nothing to fear but fear itself. And they use that line as promotional material for the actual event. It did spread the whole books. It did have some positives to the whole thing. A lot of the storytelling, a lot of the tie-ins, I really enjoyed at the time. It just, the main event basically was not well received. The tie-ins are well received, just not the main event. It's not like basically that. It's not the case of like the tie-ins being better than the main event. Not necessarily, no. Except the whole thing is like, oh, we have this mysterious god of fear who's Thor's uncle, and he's the main villain of the whole damn thing. And by the end of the event, Thor apparently dies, the god of fear dies, and Bucky Barnes dies, who is Captain America at this point, though he later came back, like, wrapped up. Yeah, two of the deaths basically were meaningless, because Bucky's was faked, and they revealed in one of the aftermath issues that he was in fact alive and well. And in the case of Thor, they explained in the title when this is the point when Matt Fraction took over the title, because it was still under the Triple H number when he took over with World Eaters, and then it was relaunched as the Mighty Thor, which lasted for 22 issues over the course of a year, because Marvel likes several titles. Yeah, he came back. Also, Yurk the Troll posed as him for a brief story, and he came back to life, no problem. In the case of Bucky, well, he came back in Winter Soldier, and he actually got an ongoing series out of this as Winter Soldier with of course, Black Widow. It lasted for surprisingly a good 19 issues. Brubaker did the first 14, and then they had another writer take over afterwards. But the book was excellent. Brubaker wrote it. Let's see. Iron Man basically had, well, at this point was still his 500s. He was doing a lot of really cool stuff. Like Fraction was doing a lot of really cool stuff with villains. It also came out when he also fought Great Gargoyle again during the storyline. Also, he came out he was drunk, so basically his reputation was in the toilet this period of time. He was also a general. There was a lot of stuff going on Iron Man. For Cap, of course, the book had been launched #1 at this point. Prior to this, basically, there was a trial for him, for Bucky, though it was also the fact that then he was not guilty in the U.S., but then he was basically dragged to Russia, and then the book just ends. And then, and then you have Steve Rogers and the relaunch back in the Captain America costume, where sadly put in the opening story arc, Sharon Carter killed D-Man, who had been a new scourge of the underworld. Killed him in self-defense, of course. The book managed to last, sadly, a good 14 issues before it had to be relaunched again because of what happened after another event. But Spider-Man basically was going through a pretty good period of time under basically Dan Slott. This is basically Dan Slott's good years for Spider-Man. It's after Secret Wars, basically, it starts to slowly go downhill, where at some point people thought he was running out of ideas because he basically was just doing some like unrealistic stuff with Spider-Man. I think this was the year of like Origin of Species. Actually, that was the previous year. They had a bunch of really good storylines with Spider-Man. Yes, Spider-Man had Fear Itself tie-in. Well, the first 2 issues he's fighting like a possessed thing, and then he's fighting Vermin for the last issue. Yeah, that was the thing with Fear. It's like he had these 7 hammers. Like you have Zorman, Titania, female Red Skull, because this was Sin, Red Skull's daughter, her face became disfigured thanks to a bomb. So we had all these people, even Grey Gargoyle, possessed by these hammers. By the end of it, the hammers basically fell out. It was returned to Asgard, and then the aftermath was explored in the Fearless miniseries, which was a series focused on Valkyrie, which later led to Fearless Defenders, which was a really damn good title. That was sadly canceled due to apparently not selling what Marvel wanted it to. It apparently the sales that from what I've read basically canceled after 12 issues. But it was written by Colin Bunn. It was an all-female team, and the thing was, it was not a terrible title. The thing was, if there's an independent title, the sales would be perfectly fine. But this was basically a one big 2. It had to do more. Like apparently, I think I heard that it sold. I think it was like 20,000 units. I think it was kind of one of Marvel's lowest selling titles. So it's probably being really, really good. Video. Alright, so, I'll see. So, basically, oh yeah, also, Daredevil joined the Avengers this period of time, and after the events of Fear itself, Spider-Man and Wolverine left the main team Avengers to focus on a time with new Avengers. Hawkeye started a relationship with Jessica Drew that went nowhere. About 2 years later, in 2013, during Infinity, they apparently broke up off panel. Yeah, it was one of those times where Bendis established something, and then no writer want anything to do with this at all. And also they show Mockingbird was jealous of him. Well, by the way, at this point they were divorced officially, so it was perfectly fine for him to see another woman. Except the problem was, nobody bothered to acknowledge this. Nobody ever did. No explanation for this. Also, during the events Fear itself, the Avengers Mansion was destroyed. It was restored the previous year. And then, thanks to Tony Stark, they fixed it, and it remained basically operational, though it became something afterwards. I think it's Warriors. I'll get to that in another video. So, then came 2012. The year that really was really not a good year for Marvel for readers wise, because the big event that dominated that year was the polarizing, and this is the first event that received this much polarizing mixed. It was split down the middle, and people liked it or hated this event. Marvel, first and only time they ever did this, well, until they did Empire a few years ago with more than one writer writing the main story. This one had 5 or 6 different writers writing this 12-issue event. A very unpopular event. An event known as Avengers vs. X-Men. Written by Brian Michael Bendis, Ed Brubaker, Jason Aaron, and I think that was it. Basically, it was like a lot of the... Oh, also for Kenny X-Men, Matt Fraction was the writer of this title. In 2011, also, there was another minor event for X-Men called Schism, which split the X-Men in two, where you had Cyclops still lead Team Utopia, while Wolverine took the team back to go back to Salem Center in New York, where they reopened the Xavier Institute, and this time under the name of Jean Grey School for Higher Learning, a school that existed until like 2019. Yeah, it moved a couple times, but yeah, the school remained open for 8 years after being closed for about 4 years. It closed in 2007, reopened in 2011. Yeah, and on Wolverine, so yeah, Wolverine obviously, which is by Jason Aaron, which at this point the book received issue 300. I almost forgot to mention that. We had the launch of a brand new original X-Men title, this being, of course, Wolverine and the X-Men, which lasted for 35 issues. Yes, all written by Jason Aaron. And then in it was actually launched in, I kid you not, 2014, and it was written by Jace Latour. I'll get to that at some point. But yeah, Avengers vs. X-Men. Like, I believe actually on the omnibus that collects all the tie-ins for this damn thing. The reason why this event is so divisive is because it's the concept that readers despise. Marvel loves doing this. They haven't done it recently, per se, that I've seen. The whole thing of hero versus hero instead of hero versus villain. They love the hero versus hero thing. And, like, if you read the opening issue for Avengers vs. X-Men, there is, like, the one thing we have Cyclops and Captain America talking. And this is all over the fact that Hope Summers might be a... Now, here's the thing. Prior to this event, and it was even pointed out about the X-Men about this. Like, why this specific time? Like, they question this in the book. And in the case of Avengers, there's no explanation why they were so paranoid over this. The return of the Phoenix Force, which had not been seen since about 2004. Now, of course, there was potential that, Hope Summers might be the one to, be the host of this. Also, they had this weird thing where, they had Hope Summers trained in the way of the Iron Fist. And this page is New Avengers. And this resulted in nothing. It was a complete waste of time for her to become trained in the Iron Fist. And they even had like a past Iron Fist debut in issue of New Avengers for some weird reason. Also, prior to this, also in the aftermath of Fear, so between Fear itself and Avengers vs. X-Men, Norman Osborn broke out of prison. Yep, he broke out and reformed the Dark Avengers and Hammer. And Dark Avengers took on the New Avengers, while Hammer was taken on by the Avengers. And in the aftermath of this, Norman fell in the coma because he became a super Daptoid. The Dark Avengers, believe it or not, they decided to keep them around and basically make them take over Thunderbolt's title, which Thunderbolt's basically doing time travel at this point in time. Yeah, also, in 2010, they established this whole thing where Thunderbolts was basically, how should I put this? They became a work release program, and essentially, simply put, Thunderbolts became Marvel's Suicide Squad. That's basically what they became in this period of time, and Jeff Parker wrote it, and they're based out of the Raft, and the leader is New Avengers, also the New Avengers, Luke Cage. Yep, I'm not sure exactly why. They explain kind of the reason why they picked him, because he's actually spent time in prison, which is indeed true. This fact is basically his crime was expunged thanks to a recording of basically someone confessing to planting evidence about drugs in his apartment in the opening issue of his book, which for some reason Bendis reckoned was diamonds, so I think it was drugs. And this was a guy who actually claimed to be Luke Cage for this, so I think you misremembered that. So, yeah, and then basically throughout the last year of the book, I think like at the Fear itself, the book basically became a time travel book. I really enjoyed it. It was not a bad book per se. Then with issue 175, the book was retitled to Dark Avengers, which lasted for 16 issues under this title. Last to issue 190, where apparently off-panel also U.S. agent became the Wonder President. He became U.S. agent again, despite he being confined to military thanks to Bullseye during events of Siege. Thanks to a lobotomized Venom symbiote, became U.S. agent again, and then by the end of the book, they go off, do something, and then it's revealed in Hawkeye that, the team disbanded right after that. How? No clue. Yeah. So, and one of the biggest divisive things about Avengers, aside from the fighting heroes versus heroes thing, is that, we have the Phoenix Force split to 5 people. Cyclops, Emma Frost, Colossus, Magic, and Namor. Yes, frickin' Namor became prior to this became an X-Men. And then slowly that emerged back into Cyclops, and also this result during this whole thing, Wakanda got flooded by the Phoenix Force by Namor, because of the ongoing conflict between Wakanda and Atlantis. Which, despite the fact Atlantis actually at this point in time was actually based on the West Coast, under a pillar in Utopia, which for some reason the tower itself completely disappeared by the time that the event started. See, the pillar that Magneto had him and Namor built underneath Utopia was to keep things afloat, and the pillar served also as the home for the Atlanteans. Which, after Avengers vs. X-Men, Atlanteans were barely mentioned after this. I think eventually they did give Atlantis back its normal location, which has kind of been ever since. So Utopia became this flying thing for a while, and then by the end of Utopia, basically it's back with Island again by the end of this event. And let's see. So eventually, by the penultimate issue, and this is the issue that a lot of people despise. Issue 11, Avengers vs. X-Men. Why is this issue despised? Issue 12 was despised, stupid. This issue is despised because Phoenix-possessed Cyclops kills Charles Xavier by doing this, and then he just dies. A lot of people question this. How the heck can you kill someone by doing the hand? Or talk to the hand? It was so baffling. And Bendis wrote this issue. And then he later claimed afterwards, because a lot of people felt as if this was a mistake. You should not have killed off Charles Xavier. And Cameron says, I'm not bringing back Xavier in my run. Which he kept his word. Bendis kept his word. Xavier stayed dead. There was no plan to bring him back at all when he was running the X-Men. He did finally come back when Charles Schroeder did Astonishing X-Men, which I enjoyed that book. Excuse me. And then came the final issue. Now, for some weird reason, Bendis gets blamed for this, despite the fact he didn't write the 12th issue. The final issue was written by Jason Aaron, who had basically in the Marvel Comics realm, several years prior to this, he basically became the writer for Thor after this. Because of the fact that Storm started with the X-Men, she had joined the Avengers during just the Fear itself. She's been for them for a while. And then because she sided with the X-Men against the Avengers, Black Panther annulled their marriage after 6 years. And I've explained to people about this. That people think, Bendis did this. No, he didn't write the issue. Like, Jason Aaron is getting heat for this at all. Yeah, Bendis gets all the heat for this. Like, if I want to blame anybody, I blame the editor. It's probably his idea to do this. Also suddenly put 2012 with the end of Joe Quesada as the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, and taken over by Axel Alonso. Quite possibly, probably had a very controversial tenure as the editor of Marvel Comics, editor-in-chief. There has been several things, because this guy, I've never met in person, but Axel Alonso, I've heard from one person about this. The guy is a notorious liar, because he said stuff in interviews, and people have called the fact that he's a liar. What he lied about, I don't know, but he was a notorious liar. And also, when he became in charge, came the stupid initiative that everybody despised for over a decade. Marvel Comics slowly stopped doing this crap, which I'll get to that. So, also in 2012, we had the launch of Avengers Assemble, a third Avengers title by Bendis, who left of the opening story arc, and the rest of the book was done by Kelly Suhanik. Also 2012, Carol Danvers stops being Miss Marvel, becomes Captain Marvel, and maintains that title to this present day. And then Raph Vance Avengers vs. X-Men, she got a brand new ongoing series. This was the first Captain Marvel book since like 2008, I think it was. Where Marvel came back once again. He came back during Chaos War. He also came back in this event too. He died once again. At this point, Carol becomes Captain Marvel. She officially becomes Captain Marvel, officially Pages Avenging Spider-Man. And then she gets her own ongoing series, which sadly lasts for 17 issues. And for some weird reason, the original artist was removed after the first year of the book. And then Marvel canceled the book not long after the original artist left. Like, a lot of people were not fans of the artwork. I mean, I read the book, and I can see why. The art was atrocious during the last 5 issues of this book. Yeah. And also the fact that throughout the remainder of the book, at the first year, it was tied with crossovers with Avengers Assemble because Kelly Suhanik was writing at that point. Let's see. Also in 2012, at the end of the year, this was the year where it would result in what some people call the Marvel Writer Exodus, where a lot of big-name writers would just up and leave Marvel Comics. Yeah, they would just leave. Go off doing their own thing. A lot of them went to Image after this. People like Matt Fraction, who left Iron Man. Yeah, Matt Fraction represented for Iron Man and Thor this period of time. Bendis still stayed with Marvel Comics. Him and Jason Aaron still stayed. Bendis left in 2018, though he's come back soon. Jason Aaron stayed. So these people left in 2012. You have Matt Fraction, who wrapped up his runs for Iron Man, Thor, and he also started Hawkeye, though he left and the book was delayed. There was also Ed Brubaker, who ended his run for Captain America after 7 years. He left. Rick Remender left, who had started his Awesome Venom book and Uncanny X-Force. He left the company. Let's see. I believe Karen Gillan didn't leave the company. There was like those 3 big writers. Yeah, they all left that very year. These were big name writers, and they wrote really damn good titles that a lot of people. I really enjoyed these titles. Comic book was sticking around for a while, and then after with these writers leaving, the following year, Marvel started something that a lot of people have despised them for. It is something that Marvel kept doing for the next several years. They finally stopped this in 2018. They finally stopped this after a 6-year stretch of doing this. What was it? Restarting the number 1. It started Marvel's obsession with this number. And also, it's like books. Some books didn't last for it. Like basically, in 2015 was worse. But it's like all these books restart. Yeah. So after the Avengers vs. X-Men, So what happened to Age of Tales? Slott was still writing Amazing Spider-Man, so he was perfectly fine. Jason Aaron took over Thor and remained the writer of Thor until 2018. Actually, it was more like 2019. I think that's when he finally left. 2019. Kieran Gillen started a very controversial run for Iron Man, which one of the things that was real about the run that Tony Stark was adopted, which a lot of people didn't like this very much at all. I think even the sales slip of the book. Let's see. Avengers itself, basically Bendis in his 8-year run, about 2013, the book was taken over. That New Avengers taken over by John Hickman, which we read the book for the next 2 years. And with Avengers was like the big, humongous roster at this period of time, where it was like 50 Avengers, and you had New Avengers was basically Illuminati. Avengers Academy was started in 2010, wrapped up in 2013, and it got replaced with a very mostly negatively received title, that being Avengers Arena, which lasted for, I think it was like 14 issues, I think it was. Yeah, and the reason it was controversial because Marvel was cashing the success of Hunger Games. Yes, seriously. And then this book was later relaunched as Avengers the Cover, which lasts 10 issues. And the whole thing, Avengers Arena, I will review at some point, but the whole premise of it is basically teenage characters killing each other for sport. And the big villain in this book was Arcade. Yes. Book was written by Dennis Hopeless. Marvel also launched in 2013, it did have a couple events that year. One was a really good event, Infinity, which I enjoyed. Which this was actually Hickman's one of his first two crossovers with Marvel, the other being Secret Wars, where basically Thanos debuted the Black Order, this really cool group. I love this group. They're actually by the end of the event, almost all of them all dead except for like 2. That was Kratos Glove and Proxima Midnight. Yeah, these 2 stay alive because Proxima was put in amber because the whole big event was basically Thanos looking for his son, because apparently it was revealed in Thanos Rising that he apparently slept with like 100 women and all of them got kids, and he's like killing all of his sons because this is the only way to impress death. And this debuted the character of Thane in Inhuman. And this started a very unpopular trend for the next few years. The Inhumans unwanted push. Where it's like, we gotta do Inhumans everywhere. This one of the tales were really good. I enjoyed the tales that Charles Shaw put out. Like, basically after Infinity, we had Inhumanity, which was about Fraction, which I think was actually one of the last books of Marvel before we left. And then we had Inhuman by Charles Shaw, which I heard this title was originally supposed to be written by Matt Fraction, but he left due to creative differences. One of the most unpopular things this period of time was outing Toro, who was, for years, a mutant. And they changed it where he's now an Inhuman. It's like we have this Terrigen Mist spread across the planet. And this Terrigen Mist will remain in the atmosphere for, I kid you not, for the next 4 years of publication. Marvel didn't finally get rid of this damn thing until 2017 with the event, I think it was like Inhumans vs. X-Men, I think it was. Yeah, also 2013 we had the debut of a very popular character. A character who I met the creator of just this year. G. Willow Wilson. Yep. This being the Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. Who is still Miss Marvel this very day. And currently she does not have an ongoing series. Nope, she does not. This was G. Willow Wilson for the first few years. And then it was Saad Ahmed. And then she had a few limited series instead. And she died. Now she's a mutant. Yeah, it's really weird. It's like Marvel does not know what to do with her. Yeah. 2012, forgot also going to mention this. 2012 also debuted a really interesting character because they killed off because Richard Rider died in 2010. So they debuted a brand new Nova, this being Sam Alexander Nova. And in the aftermath of his debut, which he debuted just prior to Avengers vs. X-Men, then he fell into coma, woke up, then his first story took place all before this. And the book was written by a guy who I also have met. I met him actually just last year. That being Jeff Loeb. Yep, he did the opening 5 issues, just like he did for Supergirl. And then he left. And the book was written by, I think it was Gary Duggan reading the book. The book was really good. I enjoyed the book. And then by the end of the book, this was ending, I think about 2014, I think it was, is when the end of this volume. And then they had to relaunch it because they ignored the ending because, the person he found was not really, because the whole thing was like searching for his father. Also, we got Girlfriend, which next one completely forgot the fact he had a girlfriend. Yes, a girl with piercings, who Sam described as the cutest girl in school. And they became a couple after this. They do. Which, I tend to think, like, what happened to his supporting cast? Who the heck freaking knows? Let's see. For X-Men, well, the Kenny X-Men title in 2011 had received a relaunch. Yeah, it was relaunched. So Karen Gillan writing. And then after Avengers vs. X-Men was relaunched once again, this time in 2013 by Bendis. He took over the title from Karen Gillan. And it launched a brand new a new X-Men ongoing series called All New X-Men. Well, the premise is that he brought the original 5 X-Men from the past after the events of issue 8 of the original from the 60s, brought to the present day, and they stay in the present day for the next 4 years. They finally go back to extermination. And this was a move that was not well received by readers, but apparently the book did really well. Yeah, financially the book did really well under Bendis. Though it had the most stupidest ending possible in 2015. An ending that nobody's cared for. It is by far, of all Bendis' books he's written, probably one of the most despised books he's written in his whole career. Yes. Let's see. I'm trying to think what else was there. Also, there was a brief launch in 2013. Also, there was one other kind of side event called Age of Ultron, which, yes, is also the name of the second Avengers movie, which was released in 2015. Which is basically Ultron, the storyline, the universe. Which, by the way, this was set up in an issue of Avengers that came out 2 years prior to this, and then Bendis just sat in this for 2 years, did this event, and in the aftermath, the timeline was shattered, and they kind of fixed some of it in the Hulk title, which after Avengers vs. X-Men, because basically Pac, who had written the title since 2009, I think it was, he left. Book was restarted under Jason Aaron, a very underrated writer. I did review it. Then it was relaunched again, this time by Mark Waid, which he lasted out for 2 years. Yes, and there was a story in the run where he's fixing some stuff. And I've had this theory for years about the ending of Age of Ultron with the timeline shattered, which by the way, no one notices until like 2015. So, it's like Marvel writers are trying to fix this, and that they either are just forgetting about it or just told not to bother with it. It is one of the most frustrating plot threads I have ever seen that never got resolved or fixed. Yeah, but in the aftermath of this, we had something really cool happen. The Marvel debut of Image's Angela. Yep, Angela made her debut at the end of Age of Ultron, killing a Thor monster. Yep, in case you're curious, how the heck did this happen? I thought Angela was owned by Tom McFarlane. Nope. So apparently, from what I've read, Tom McFarlane got sued by Neil Gaiman over this character. Neil Gaiman won, and then sold the character to Marvel, who has done jack freaking squat with her a lot of the time over the years. I mean, the most interesting thing they did with the character was they added her as Thor's sister. And here's the thing. No one has told Thor this. I'm sure readers probably whisper in Thor's ear, tell him, "Hey Thor, your sister's hot." Because Angela's hot, and then Angela basically got dumped over in Guardians of the Galaxy. She got a couple solo books. She hasn't done a lot. She's mostly supposed to be confined to Thor. Doing very little. Let's see, what else is there? I don't think what else in 2013. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. In 2013 we had 2012 they had 2012 they got rid of Amazing Spider-Man in a storyline that's not well liked, and 2013 got replaced by Superior Spider-Man, which just 2 years ago celebrated 10 years. The title itself was not well received. Toward the end it was. But its most recent by Bendis, which I thought was really good. Didn't last very long though. It was the year of Dr. Octopus taking Peter Parker's body for a joyride for a year, and then by the end of it, because in 2014 they had to basically bring back Amazing Spider-Man because Amazing Spider-Man 2 is coming out that year, so bring back Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah, it was a book that made the Avengers look completely like complete morons. Yeah. Trying to think what else was there. Trying to think here. 2013 also had another small crossover, that being Battle of the Atom. The only reason when this happened because it was, I think it was like 50 years since the debut of the X-Men. So they had this cross between all new X-Men, Wolverine the X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, and there was another X-Men title they launched by Brian Wood, featuring a female team X-Men, which lasted until for about 21 issues. Yeah, the previous volume, which was launched in 2011. Yeah, they launched the title in 2011 with Curse Mutants. That title lasted for 41 issues and then was restarted in 2013. Yeah. But the book itself was really good. And if you're curious, is this title counted part of the number for X-Men Volume 2 or X-Men Volume 1? Nope, it's its own separate numbering. It's Marvel Comics. They like being weird. I'm trying to think here. 2013 did have a very brief book for War Machine. Actually, War Machine had two titles. One in 2011, one in 2013, I think it was. The 2011 title was the Iron Man 2.0, which I reviewed the first trade for that one. Really interesting title. I think Nick Spencer wrote it. Last 12 issues, not sure why it ended. And then you had, in 2013, you had Iron Patriot, a book that got axed after only 5 issues. No one knew the book got canceled. It just stopped publishing. I heard a friend of mine basically say, they Marvel canceled because it sucked. I think because it got canceled because no one to buy it, because they look at Road like, that's War Machine, that's not Iron Patriot. The only reason why they made the book Iron Patriot was because of Iron Man 3. And the fact Secret Avengers Government launched in 2013 and by Nick Spencer, and during the book, that's where Rhodey got his suit. Let's see, what else is there? Oh, in 2011, there were 2 other titles. I forgot to mention this before in this video because it's getting kind of long here. Greg Rucka has started his Punisher book in 2011, and then it ended in 2012 after only publishing 16 issues. Got wrapped up in Punisher War Journal Volume 3, and then Punisher had this mini-series where Punisher on trial, and then he popped up in Thunderbolts by Charles Scholl. Actually, it was by Dana Way, I think. Dana Way wrote the book. Thunderbolts got relaunched Spirit of Time in 2013. Daredevil in 2011 got relaunched under Mark Waid. And he made the writer until about 2015. Yes, the book had been relaunched once. One YouTuber claimed it was launched multiple times when he was a writer. And I'm like, no. It hit the restart button once. Yeah, it started with number 1 when he started, because obviously it didn't. It restarted again in 2013 when the book had moved the character to back to San Francisco, which had been there since 1970s. And also had the first fight between Daredevil and Kingpin toward the end of that book. First time since like 2010, because Kingpin moved go back over to Amazing Spider-Man. Was there anything else? Well, Captain Marvel, last 17 issues, got relaunched again. Once again by Kelly Sonic in I think it was like 2014, I think it was, that relaunched again. I'll get to that next time. But I think I covered everything I could think of off the top of my head that happened over the course of 2011, 2013. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications. Next up in my review for Case Closed and a Comic Corner. Okay, thanks, Phil. Bye.